at some point next week, Cleveland.com will come out with their poll and they pull different writers from around the Big Ten. I don't think either of us have a vote for this prestigious poll yet, or at the current moment, but it's not that prestigious. They've been right 3 out of the last 12 years on the Big Ten champion. Just want to point that out. They picked Ohio State last year as a unanimous Big Ten champ. I think it was like first time in a while that they had a unanimous pick. Obviously, that didn't happen. They were close. But who do you think is going to be the media's pick? I'd lean towards Michigan. I wouldn't put it past them to give it to Ohio State. But I just feel like 2 in a row now from Michigan that it could go in Michigan's favor. And again, not that it really matters at all. And if you're Michigan, you probably want more of a chip on your shoulder anyway.
Yeah, I think that I can't speak for everyone. I do think there will probably be some sort of split. I do think it will be Michigan whenever that poll comes out. But I could see it being I don't know how many people they poll, but I could see Michigan slightly being ahead. Or you can make arguments for both, but
yeah.
For us, we are, and again, of course, slightly biased because this is the site we work for. This is the team we cover, all that sort of thing. But I feel like the perception of this Ohio State team is shaped by what recruiting rankings say and what NFL draft analysts say in terms of these prospect lists. In terms of what's happened on the field, Michigan brings back really most of it. I went back and watched that Ohio State game from 2021 recently, and Michigan really does bring back most of their contributors from that game. It feels like they bring back most of their contributors from the game between those two teams last year. And Ohio State does too, but I feel like Michigan's better where it counts. And for me, the things I value, the things that you need to be to win the Big Ten, even when Ohio State is kind of running through everyone, they have been able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I think that the reason I would still pick Michigan is because I think that they are better suited to do that on both sides of the ball compared to, what Ohio State brings back. And that's regardless of what recruiting rankings are say or what, S&P Plus says, what NFL drafts watch boards say, what PFF says. So, you can't quantify everything. I just feel like Michigan is still better where it counts, including right now. And I'll say it, they're better at the quarterback position by virtue of just knowing who Michigan's starting quarterback will be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I got Michigan winning the East as well. I think, as we said, I agree with you. I think it's going to be semi-split. It won't be unanimous that Michigan will be the favorite because I do think Ohio State, and I think Ohio State, deservingly so, has a really good shot at winning the Big Ten this year. Things don't always just stay the same forever, as we saw, and as we saw Michigan basically flip the rivalry and become the best program in the Big Ten over the last 2 years. So Ohio State's going to have a chance. They bring a ton back on defense. They bring a lot back on offense other than quarterback. The big storyline is their new quarterback, McCord, but at the same time, he's got everyone around him. He's got time outside of that early Notre Dame game to figure some things out before they have to play. And really, that doesn't matter with the Notre Dame game when it comes to the Big Ten race. So they could even drop that and still, win the Big Ten, obviously. But I got Michigan winning it. I got Ohio State being right there, probably undefeated at the end. I guess that means that Penn State loses to both of those teams. But I wanted to get your thought, too, on who's going to be third. I mean, how is it going to shake out after Michigan, who we both predict will win the Big Ten East?
Yeah, when I did the preview for the football preview magazine,
that's right,
which is available now. Of course, they're out in the wild. I had Penn State. I have them there at 10-2. I feel like it's just there's always some kind of preseason hype around them, and they've kind of become what Michigan was, for those 6 years prior to what's happened the last 2 seasons, in that you're going to win 9 or 10 games. You're going to lose to the 2 or 3 best teams on your schedule every year. And that's just, you're going to be at the end of the season, probably in a New Year's Six bowl game. And you're just going to kind of shrug your shoulders and be like, I don't know how to rate this year, or I don't know how to feel about it. Now, again, Penn State, I think that the quarterback situation there, obviously much higher upside than they've had the last, whatever it was, felt like Sean Clifford was there for 10 years, but I've got them in that second spot or in that third spot. So yeah, I think it is. I think it's pretty unanimously Penn State. I guess I could see a scenario where Penn State maybe stumbles a little bit and maybe Maryland slides into that role. But to me, when I look at it's the top two in this conference. There's number 3 right behind them, and then I kind of see a pretty wide gap from there, or in terms of the Big Ten East. Because then you're talking about Michigan State, you're talking about Maryland, you're talking about Rutgers, Indiana. So that's again, I think that it's the big 2 and the little 5 in this scenario.
I think there's a slight drop off between Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, but I think they're as close to being in that group as they've been in a while. I think their defense is going to be really good. I like what they have at running back. Their offensive line has some studs up there. And then if Drew Allar can kind of be the X factor, the guy that takes that offense to the next level. They haven't been quite dynamic recently. They couldn't run 2 years ago. They could run last year, but Clifford is just kind of Sean Clifford, right? I mean, he's good, not great. Now, they were quietly very good last season. The Michigan game kind of clouds how everybody thinks of Penn State, but I forget what it was. I think it was they covered the spread in 7 out of their last 8 games. That was a game against Ohio State last season. So that was a really good team. Michigan ran all over them, blew them out. It wasn't close. Even when it was close at half, Michigan completely controlled the game. I think first downs were like 17-2 at halftime, despite it being within one score. But that was a good Penn State team. So I think they got a shot, and I think it could come down to that tiebreaker, which would be really interesting. We mentioned it on a Monday a little bit, but if all things are equal in some of the first few steps of the tiebreaker, which more than likely they're going to be, then it could come down to the record of each team's Big Ten West opponents and how they did. Have to point this out. Michigan does not play Iowa or Wisconsin, the 2 teams that are predicted to finish at the top of the West. Penn State plays Iowa, and Ohio State plays at Wisconsin. So you may have to be rooting for some of the West teams like Minnesota and Nebraska that Michigan plays this year throughout the rest of the season if that tiebreaker comes into play. So I think the top 3 is going to be really, really interesting. You could also have one of those that don't win the Big Ten slide into the playoff, as we saw last season. But you segued a little bit into what I wanted to talk about next is who's going to finish 4th. I mean, there's kind of that group down there. Who do you have finishing 4th behind those guys?
Yeah, if I had to tear it out, and I'm doing this in real time now because I haven't really thought about it that much, but it's getting close to time to think about these things, power rankings and whatnot. I think it's obviously Michigan, Ohio State at the top, slight drop off to Penn State at number 3. I think a little bit more of a drop off to Maryland at number 4. But then from there, I think it's really the bottom half of this, or the bottom 3 teams in this division. I don't think Michigan State's going to be very good. I just don't see a path to that for them. Rutgers is Rutgers. I mean, they're going to play physical, and they're going to have guys that dive at knees, and they're going to be a thorn in your side. Probably play some closer games than you're comfortable with, but I don't see them being anything more than a 3-9 team. And then Indiana, I mean, talk about, I know, Clayton, you like to pull receipts on, the Matt Campbell, Jim Harbaugh debate from 2020, but think about the conversation that was being had about Tom Allen and Jim Harbaugh, where, Tom Allen was the belle of the ball there during that COVID season in the Big Ten. And since then it's been pretty bad. And, not only that, now you're losing guys that were captains of the transfer portal who are coming to Michigan now. And I just don't know that the talent is good enough there. I think Indiana is the last place team, probably by a decent margin. But, after that top 4, I think the Big Ten East is kind of stinky.
AB, think back to 2020. People wanted Jim Harbaugh out. And who were the 2 darlings of the Big Ten other than Ohio State, which needed a rule change to get in the Big Ten championship game before they won it? Tom Allen and Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, just think of what has changed, because Northwestern was playing Ohio State tough there in that Big Ten championship game. Things have changed a little bit. Now you look at these head coach rankings, which are a little ridiculous, but clicks are clicks. Jim Harbaugh's number 3, number 4 in the top 5 in all of them. So things have I'm not sure he's become a much better coach in the last couple of years, but he's obviously done a great job. But yeah, things have definitely changed. I got Maryland finishing 4th in the East. Could come down to the Maryland-Michigan State game, which is at Michigan State. So I guess they would have the edge in terms of where that one is played. But I agree on Michigan State. I don't think they're going to be good. I think Indiana is going to end up firing Tom Allen after the season. I mean, it's just not working at this point, even though he did get them to play good football for a few seasons there. So that's kind of where I see it. Rutgers, just going to be 6th, 7th, whatever it is. But I got Maryland, and that's kind of Maryland's ceiling as long as there's a Big Ten East, which thankfully for Maryland, only one more year of that. It'll be a breath of fresh air for them and Rutgers, I think, once the divisions go away. But anything else on the Big Ten East before we move over to the West?
I cannot emphasize enough that I don't think Michigan State is going to be very good at all. I just want to keep hammering that home.